Okay, so good day class. So welcome to our lesson in advanced building and construction planning. Okay, so if you can remember, during the first part of our term, we discussed about divisions 1 to 16 of the specification master format. Then we also discussed some techniques in estimating. Okay, then today class in your final term, we're going to continue about the techniques in estimating in parallel with advanced building and construction planning. So let's begin with chapter 1, the introduction to planning construction projects. So good construction planning is essential. In many developing countries, construction alone accounts for about 10% of the gross national product and 50% or more of the wealth invested in fixed assets. So managing a project is quite different from managing a steady-state organization. So a project has a distinct beginning and an end, whereas steady-state organizations run continuously. So examples of the latter are hospitals and mass production factories. So in a hospital, the basis of medical care changes slowly. So despite technological advances and the administrative works to a routine. In mass production industries, the routine of production proceeds continuously, except when new models are being introduced. So what this simply means, class, is that in a construction project, even in small project like in residential buildings, it has a beginning and an end. Okay, so at the beginning, so that's the time when you plan your project, you do the plans, then you also have the ending when you're going to turn over the house or the building. But in between that, class, as an architect, it is your job to manage the material and human resources involved. Okay, so these are the elements included in project management, starting from goals and ending with the end product given in this figure. So project management class, it has the planning, executing, and controlling, then goes to an end product. So you have here your goals. It is bound by time. Since when you do construction projects, you should set a time element. So how much time is needed to finish that? Then also requires funding. So for example, let's say for example, you're going to build a house. So how much will it cost? Okay. Then what are the human and technical resources needed? For example, how many engineers do you need for this project? Foreman, construction workers. Then the end result will be the end product, which is the building or the house. So in general, the construction industry supplies the basic requirements of shelter, water, sanitation, roads, and hospitals. Therefore, performance of construction industry has a marked effect both on the economy and on social conditions. So this is especially true in developing countries where much of this infrastructure is lacking. So it follows that efficient management of construction project is vital if scarce resources are not to be wasted. So proper construction management should provide the cycle of activities to achieve the project goals. So in this statement, class, it just simply means that in more developed countries, their infrastructure is so developed in such a way that their people can benefit from it. Okay, so in the Philippines, we really need to develop our infrastructure. Okay, like for example, we need better bridges. Then we need better public transportation systems. Okay, this could also help the economy. Like for example, what if Mindanao Island has a railroad network or a bullet train connecting Cagayan de Oro to Davao? So if you have such infrastructure, travel from Cagayan de Oro to Davao would just take around 1 to 2 hours instead of the 8. So it would mean that goods can travel and people can travel faster. So there will be faster economic activity. So that's why, class, infrastructure is synonymous to economic activity. So that is what is lacking right now here in our country, which is still developing. So this is the managerial cycle shown figure 1.2. Okay, some changes often unforeseen occur during the lifetime of a project. So figure 1.2 presents a continuous action at achieving the best possible result. You can see here you have your planning. So in the planning stage, you're going to set the objectives. Then you're going to survey resources. So what does survey resources mean? In smaller projects class, it means that you're going to know what are the material resources available. Okay, so if you are the contractor, the builder, what resources do you have to implement the project? And then you're going to form a strategy in the construction. So you don't form the strategy class when you're already in the execution part. As early as the planning part, you should already have a strategy. For example, if you have a project within a slope area, so you already have a strategy how to build that. Okay? Then you have the executing. So in execution, you're going to allocate resources. Then you're going to guide the execution, and then you coordinate effort and motivate staff. Okay, class? Motivate staff class means that during the construction project, you have to make them see the benefits of completing it. Because one of the problems class during execution is that, especially in construction projects, is that the people, when they see that it's coming to an end, they don't see, they feel they don't feel secure with their job, because construction project has a beginning as an end. Oftentimes, we can say that for large construction project, it may take 1 to 3 years. Okay, then for smaller residential buildings, maybe 6 to 8 months. So what will happen after that? So that's why you should be there to motivate them to work for the benefit of the project. Okay, then you also have the controlling. Then you're going to measure achievements against goals. Then you're going to report, and then you're going to resolve. Class, no matter how well planned the construction project lasts, there will always be some problems that you have not anticipated. That's why you need constant reporting and constant resolving of the problems that may occur. Then you also have to measure achievements against goals. So that's the only way that you can learn from project to project. That what you learn from one project, you're going to apply that to the next until such time that you have already perfected your own system. Okay, so about the parties of the construction project. So the main parties involved in a construction project are 1. The client, 2. The users, 3. The designers. So designers, you have the architect, the structural engineer, the survey engineer, geodetic engineer. You have the professional electrical engineer, professional mechanical engineer, the sanitation engineer, and the professional electronics and communications engineer. Then you have the executors. So the executors who would be your contractor, or it could be you engaging in design build service. Then you have the public authorities and agencies. So the link between them is often provided by a project management team created for the duration of the project. So the team is normally headed by a project manager who is responsible to the client for the execution of the project. So the project management team shown in figure 1.3, which we will discuss later on. Okay, so 1.2.1, the client. So the client may be an individual, such as someone wishing to build a house. So the word is more generally used for the organization which needs the end product and has the authority and the money to order and approve it. For government projects, the client is usually a ministry or a department. Okay, so this is figure 1.3 class. If you have here the management team, so then they're going to discuss with the client. Then the back of the client, you have the public authorities or agencies. Okay, then during the construction project or the project cycle, you have the briefing, designing, the tendering, the constructing, and the commissioning. We will discuss those later on. Another is the users. So in many respects, the users are the most important party. So yet often they are the most neglected. So they are the people who must operate and maintain the facilities which have been provided. So although the same organization may be both the client and the user, the individuals involved may be different. Okay? So, for example, class, in a school building, when you construct a school building, so who are the users? So, it could be the professors, the teachers, the instructors, and the students also. Okay? Then the client would be the the president of the school, for example. Okay? Then you have the designers. So these are the architects and specialists responsible for translating the client's requirements into reality. So in a building project, the architect works with the following people. You're going to work with the structural engineers in the design of the structure. Then you have as draftsman to produce the working drawings from the sketches. Then you have the electrical engineers in the design of power and lighting supplies. You have the civil engineers in the design of access roads and earthworks. You have a water supply quantity surveyors in the preparation of estimates and tender documents. Then class here in the Philippines, you have your professional electrical engineer, your professional mechanical engineer, your professional electronics and communications engineer. Then you also have your sanitation engineer or your master plumber. So not every project requires all these people. On the other hand, large and complex projects may require additional specialists. For example, for heating and cooling, health, and safety. So each project, especially in the construction industry, is unique. So the people involved would vary. Then you also have the executors. So these are the people who undertake the physical construction. So who in many cases will be the private contractors. Some ministries have their own labor forces, and works carried out in this way is said to be done by direct labor or force out. For simplicity, the word contractor is used and is deemed to include all organizations which actually build. Okay, then you have your public authorities and agencies. So all buildings must fulfill statutory requirements regarding construction standards and safety. For example, the roofs must be able to withstand specified wind loadings, and fire regulations must be observed. So the health and safety of people who work or dwell in a building are usually safeguarded by legal regulations, so they must have a substantial effect on the shape of the building and the facilities provided. When you go to your higher year class, higher levels, I think you're going to learn about building laws. So I'm not so sure if I'm handling you guys. Maybe you have a different instructor, but in building laws, you discuss about PD 1096, which is the National Building Code. You discuss about PD 957, the Condominium Subdivision Law. Then you're going to discuss about BP 220, the Socialized and Economic Housing. Then you're going to discuss about PD 1216, the Open Spaces Act. Then you're going to discuss about the revised Fire Code of 2008, and the new Plumbing Code, the Structural Code, etc. And also including Republic Act 9266. So there are a lot of laws, class, which govern and affect the building industry and the practice of architecture in the Philippines. Okay? So as architects, or as future architects, it is your job to know these different laws so that you can apply that in the planning process. So it's like that. It's like you're the lawyer of the client in the construction industry, because you're the one who should be knowledgeable on the different laws, on the different codes that are applicable for the case. So these are the stages and aspects of construction. So a construction project includes 5 stages from the time when the decision is made to implement the construction of the project until the project becomes a reality. So the stages of a construction project are: first, you have the briefing; 2, you have the designing; 3, you have the tendering; 4th, you have the constructing; you have 5th, the commissioning. So we're going to discuss these stages one by one later on. So let's go to the briefing stage. So the purpose of the briefing stage is to enable the client to specify project functions and permissible costs, so that the architects and engineers, quantity surveyors, and other members of the design team can correctly interpret his wishes and provide cost estimates. Then what are the activities? One is to set up a work plan and appoint designers and specialists. 2. Consider user requirements, locations, and site conditions, planning, designing, estimated cost, quality requirements. Then ensure the preparation of sketches at the scale of 1:100, 1:1000, or 1:3500 depending on the project. Then you have the cost estimates and implications. Then you have a plan for implementation, then the department data program. So the participants are the architect, the structural, electrical, mechanical engineers, the quantity surveyor, the specialists such as health or school planner, and user representatives. Next class is the designing stage. So its purpose is to complete the project brief and determine the layout, design, methods of construction, and estimate costs. So in order to obtain the necessary approvals from the client and authorities involved. So to prepare the necessary production information including working drawings and specifications, and to complete all arrangements for obtaining tenders. So the activities at this stage include the development of the project brief to final completion, investigation of the technical problems, obtaining the client final approval of the brief. So this is important class, you obtain the approval of the client since he or she or they will be the one who will be financing the undertaking or the project. We have going to prepare also a scheme design including cost estimates. Then later on, going to move a more detailed design with the working drawings, specifications, and schedules. Then you have your bill of quantities, final cost estimates, a preliminary production program including time schedule. Then you have the participants. So depending on the nature and complexity of the project, the design team should include the following. First is the project manager. Then you have the architect. You have the quantity surveyor. So if quantity surveyor class is a new term for you, they are the one who will be doing the estimates for the quantities. Okay, then you have the structural, mechanical, electrical engineers, and then some specialists as health and safety officials, organizational planners, etc. Then let's go to the tendering stage. The purpose of the tendering stage is to approve a contractor or a number of contractors who will undertake the site construction works. So it would really depend if there's going to be one general contractor or going to be a series of contractors for the different parts of the structure. Then the activities is to obtain tenders from contractors for the construction of the building and to award the contract. So government tendering procedures are particularly closely controlled to ensure that national contracts are awarded in an equitable and uniform way. So in many cases, tendering is the responsibility of a central tendering board, which is independent of either the client or the executing agency. Members of the project management team may be required to provide the basic documentation to the central tendering board and generally to provide technical assistance. Okay, so what is the pre-qualification? So to increase the probability that the client will get what is required, it is usual to introduce some procedure to ensure that only experienced and competent contractors are allowed to tender. So this procedure is known as pre-qualification. So it involves an investigation to the potential contractors' financial, managerial, and physical resources or his experience of similar projects and an assessment of the firm's integrity. So it is important that when you select a contractor that he has the requisite experience and that he has already done similar projects in the past. Then it's also important to assess his financial capacity. Because now if the contractor does not have the financial capacity to implement the project, then it could cause problems later on. And the D, the contract documents. So the contract itself will be defined in a legal document which describes the duties and responsibilities of the parties to it. For construction work, standard forms of contract have evolved in most countries, and it's usual for the Central Tender Board to require the use of one of these standard forms with perhaps minor modifications to suit the circumstance of a particular project. So other contract documents are those necessary to define in detail the construction required by the client, the drawings, the specifications, the schedules, bill of quantities, the time scale. So these documents will have been prepared during the design stage. Then let's go to the standard forms of contract. The use of standard forms of contract is recommended because 1. The contents will be well known and understood by the parties involved. 2. Their wording embodies much experience in resolving difficulties of interpretation and enforcement. 3. They will usually have been tested in law. 4. The preparation of new forms of contract is expensive and time-consuming. Okay, so who are the participants? In the case of government projects, the project management teams may be expected to give that technical support by 1. Providing the necessary contract documents. 2. Providing a basis for pre-qualification of tenderers. 3. Checking that the tenders are arithmetically correct and conform to tender requirements. So government tender boards usually award the contract to the lowest bidder. In the case of private projects, the final choice of contractor rests with the client, acting on the advice of the project management team. Now let's go to the construction stage. The purpose of the construction stage is to construct the structure within the agreed limits of cost and time and to the specified quality. Okay, class, so someday if you're going to engage in design build, it is important that it is clear between you and the client how much time is needed to construct the project, how much will it cost, and what are the specified qualities. Okay, that's why, class, this is where your specifications will come in. So during your specifications, it must be something that is already agreed with the client, so that if the client will want something that is more expensive, you can always refer to the contract documents which is found in specifications. So you can always explain to the client that what is agreed is to use only this product. To the activities, this is to plan, coordinate, and control site operations. Production planning includes the formulation of 1. The time schedules, the site organization, manpower plan, plant equipment plan, then a materials delivery plan. So when you say the time schedules, that's what are the working hours. So if you're going to do a small residential building, for example, so how many days will the project team work? Will they work from Monday to Saturday, or will they include Sundays as well? Then, excuse me. Then you also have to include the site organization. So when you say the site organization, are you going to have a foreman only on the site, or going to have engineers also to supervise? Then you're going to a manpower plan. Because in construction, class, there's a stage wherein you're going to need a lot of manpower, but towards the end of the project, you're gonna need to reduce it. Okay? Then you have a plant and equipment plan. So what are the equipments that you're going to use? So will you have a batching plant for the project? So those are the things that you must plan as well. So the materials delivery plan. Okay, so the materials delivery plan class is important because it it develops side by side with the construction process, because you have to be able to deliver the materials on time to the site, otherwise the project will be delayed. Then you also have site operations, which include all temporary and permanent construction works and the supply of all built-in furniture and equipment, the coordination of subcontractors, the general supervision. So the construction stage consists of a number of interrelated activities. The failure of one activity can disrupt the entire production schedule. Therefore, careful production planning is important. We have the participants. The main participants are the project management team and the contractor. Normally, the direct responsibility rests with the contractor. So the project manager and his team must arrange for adequate supervision of work to ensure that the requirements are met. So what are the temporary permanent construction works last for a small residential building, for example? So you're going to need a temporary facility for the temporary toilet facilities for the workers. Then you're going to need temporary facilities for the storage and handling of materials. Then we're going to go into the commissioning stage. So the purpose of the commissioning stage is to ensure that the building has been completed as specified in the contract documents, that all the facilities work properly. So to provide a record of the actual construction together with operating instructions, then to train staff in the use of the facilities provided. So records, during construction, difficulties may arise, which results in changes to the original design. Records of these changes will be kept during construction, mainly for financial reasons. So the activities, you're going to prepare as-built records or as-built plans. Then inspect the construction thoroughly and have defects remedied. Then start up, test, and adjust all services. You're going to prepare operating instructions and maintenance manuals. Then the commissioning stage is the transition period between the construction, the occupancy, and the use of the building or the structure. And the participants here, class, are the project management team, the operating staff, the designers and specification, and the specification writers, the building services and suppliers staff, and then the contractor. Okay, so that's it, class, for chapter 1. This is Introduction to Planning Construction Projects. So if you have any questions or inquiries or clarifications on our lesson today, you can send an email or send a PM to me anytime, and I'm going to respond as long as I'm online. Okay, so see you next week and stay safe. Thank you.